The first thing I felt was pain. Not sharp, not immediate, something deeper, like my very bones had been rearranged and stitched back together in the wrong order. My eyelids were heavy, but the scents around me forced them open. Herbs, smoke, and beneath it all, the musky sharpness of wolves. I was lying on a narrow cot, the sheets coarse against my skin. The infirmary. The air hummed with quiet whispers. Shapes moved at the edges of my blurred vision. Wolves in human form. Healers murmuring too low for me to make out. "She's not one of us," one voice said, soft but laced with suspicion. "Not human anymore either," another answered. The words cut deeper than the pain in my body. Not one of us, not human. My throat was dry, my chest tight. I forced myself to move, to sit, but every muscle trembled with weakness. And then I felt it, a burn at the side of my neck, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. My hand flew up instinctively, fingers brushing against skin that was tender, raised. I winced. A mark like a brand seared into me. "What did they do to me?" My voice rasped, weak. No one answered, but their whispers swelled. "An omega," someone hissed. She opened her eyes as an omega. "Impossible. Humans don't just become wolves. Unless..." Their silence afterward was heavier than their words. I gripped the sheet tighter, my breathing shallow. An omega. The lowest rank of wolves. Fragile, dependent, bound by instinct to serve. But I wasn't a wolf. I had never been a wolf. I was human, or at least, I had been when I closed my eyes. Panic surged. My fingers fumbled at my throat until they found it, the small silver pendant hanging on its worn leather cord. My mother's. The only piece of her I still carried. Relief trembled through me at its touch. They hadn't taken it. As long as I had it, I wasn't completely lost. I pressed it to my lips, whispering the words she had taught me. "Stand, even when you're breaking." It was more prayer than mantra now. The burn at my neck flared hotter. I clenched my teeth, fighting the urge to cry out. Healers shifted at the edge of my bed, watching me like I was both patient and threat. One leaned closer, his eyes narrowing at my neck. His lips parted, but before he could speak, another voice cut through the room. "Enough." The word rolled with authority, silencing every whisper. A tall figure stepped into view, his presence filling the infirmary without effort. His dark cloak brushed the floor, and though I couldn't see his face clearly yet, the way others bowed their heads told me everything. The Alpha King. My pulse stumbled. I had heard his name spoken in hushed tones, had seen him once from afar, when his pack came to claim tribute. Roman, ruthless, unchallenged, bound to no one. Why was he here? Why was he looking at me? His amber eyes fixed on me, steady, unblinking. I felt pinned, like prey caught in a predator's gaze. He said nothing for a long time, just studied me, and in that silence, I knew what the whispers had already hinted. The mark at my neck wasn't just any mark. It was his. The burn intensified under his gaze, as if it recognized him, as if it belonged to him. My stomach twisted. "No," I whispered to myself. It wasn't possible. I would remember. A mark wasn't something given lightly, it was bond, power, claim. And yet I had no memory. No choice in this. The king's expression remained unreadable. He finally turned his head slightly, speaking not to me but to the healers. "She stays under guard. No one touches her until I say." The authority in his tone brooked no argument. The healers bowed their heads, retreating, their whispers swallowed into silence. And just like that, I was alone with the truth I didn't understand. A human who had opened her eyes as an omega. A mark burning at my neck I had never asked for, and the Alpha King's gaze fixed on me like a sentence already passed. I clutched my pendant tighter, the words of my mother echoing in my mind. Stand, even when you're breaking. But as the weight of the king's eyes lingered, I wondered if standing would be enough because something told me I was already claimed. The throne room was larger than I remembered, though maybe that was because I had never stood at its center before. The vaulted ceiling arched so high it seemed to scrape the heavens, and marble pillars rose like watchful sentinels. Torches lined the walls, their flames restless in the draught, casting long shadows across the polished stone. At the far end, the throne itself sat elevated on its dais, carved from dark wood and inlaid with silver. And upon it sat Roman, the Alpha King. His amber eyes found me the moment I was dragged into the chamber, and they did not waver. Not for the guards, not for the murmuring council seated in semicircle, not even for the ceremonial crown resting nearby. His gaze burned steady, too sharp, too long. It felt like being measured and claimed all in the same breath. I lowered my eyes, clutching my pendant tight against my chest, as though its worn leather cord could shield me from him. The mark on my neck still pulsed faintly, hot under my skin, as if aware of his nearness. The whispers started immediately. It's his mark, Kami. I saw it myself, the burn carries his scent. But he said nothing. Wouldn't he remember if he'd chosen her? Unless it wasn't a choice at all. Each word was a dagger I had no shield against. I wanted to scream that they were wrong, that it couldn't be his, but the heat beneath my skin said otherwise. Roman raised a hand, and silence swept the room like a blade. His voice carried easily, low and measured. You woke with a mark. I forced myself to lift my chin, though the weight of his gaze pressed down like iron. I don't know how. The faintest flicker crossed his face. Curiosity, irritation, I couldn't tell. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the carved arms of his throne. Do you deny that it is mine? The question stole the breath from my chest. Deny it? When every wolf in this room had seen it for themselves? I swallowed hard. I don't understand. I don't remember. His eyes narrowed, searching me with the kind of intensity that left no room for lies. My heartbeat thudded loud in my ears. Wolves could hear it, I knew. Any false word would betray me. I am not worthy of such a mark, I blurted, desperation sharpening my tone. I'm not wolf, I am nothing. A human, a servant, an omega, if that's even what I am now. I have no place in this. The whispers rose again, unworthy, human, omega. But Roman didn't flinch. His amber eyes gleamed with something unreadable as he studied me. Then he spoke, and his voice was quieter, but sharper than before. Then tell me, Ara, why would fate bind me to nothing? The words struck deep, unraveling the thin threads of certainty I had clung to. Why, indeed, I had no answer. I don't know, I whispered, my voice breaking. I wish I did. His gaze lingered on me too long, heavy and unrelenting, until I wanted to shrink into the stone floor. Yet beneath the weight of it, something else stirred. Suspicion, yes, but also something I couldn't name. Victor, one of the council wolves, stood suddenly, his scarred face twisted in disdain. Your Majesty, this cannot stand. A human branded with the Alpha King's mark? If she carries it, she is a danger. If she does not, then she is a fraud. Either way, she should be tested. A rumble of agreement stirred among the council. Blood trial. The words were not spoken aloud, but the meaning hung heavy in the air. Roman's hand lifted once more, silencing them. His eyes never left mine. She is neither fraud nor accident. The mark is real. The council shifted uneasily, but none dared contradict him directly. Still, the whispers lingered at the edges of the chamber. Pray, pawn, something else. I forced myself to breathe, clutching the pendant until its edges cut into my palm. My mother's voice echoed faintly in my mind. Stand, even when you're breaking. But standing felt impossible under that gaze. I had woken as prey, marked without memory, and now the entire pack waited to see if I was something worse. And Roman, his eyes still locked on me, searching, questioning, looked as though he already suspected the answer. The kitchens had always been my refuge. When I first stumbled across the border, half-starved and desperate, this was where I had been given scraps, a task, a place to disappear. I knew the rhythm of the servants here, the clang of pots, the hiss of boiling water, the thud of knives on boards, the sounds of survival, simple and safe. But now, the rhythm faltered the moment I entered. Conversations broke, knives paused mid-chop, every gaze turned to the mark at my neck. She carries it still, one whispered, their voice sharp enough to cut. It glows against her skin, another muttered, as though the burn were alive. I clutched my pendant, keeping my chin low, but it did nothing to stop the weight of their eyes. I had once been invisible here, a shadow in plain sight. Now I was spectacle, scandal, danger. A group of Omegas near the bread table leaned together, their voices pitched just high enough for me to hear. She must have bewitched him. The Alpha King wouldn't choose her. 9. No, look at her, another hissed. She's cursed. That mark will bring ruin on all of us. I tried to steady my breathing, but the words crawled beneath my skin. Bewitched, cursed, as though I were a plague waiting to spread. I kept moving, forcing myself toward the water basin, but one figure stepped into my path, Mara, a hostile Omega whose scorn had followed me since the day I arrived. Her arms crossed, her smirk cruel. Well, well, she said, loud enough for every ear in the room. The human Omega, carrying the king's mark. Tell us, Ara, how does it feel to lie your way into power? I froze, gripping the edge of the basin to keep from trembling. I didn't ask for this. Didn't ask? She laughed, bitter and sharp, You think any wolf believes that? Marks don't just appear. He must have touched you. Or maybe you tricked him. A spell, a charm. I would never. Enough! My voice cracked, but the room had already erupted. She's dangerous, quote. She'll bring the king down with her. Test her, make her bleed. The swell of voices pressed close, suffocating. My chest tightened. I wanted to shout, to run, but before I could move, Mara lunged forward. Her hand shot out, fingers digging into my arm as she yanked me toward her. Show us, then, she snarled, her eyes wild. Show us what you really are. Pain flared where her nails dug in. But before I could react, another voice shattered the air. Release her. The command rolled through the hall like thunder. Every voice died, every head bowed. Roman stood in the doorway, his presence filling the space with the kind of authority no one dared challenge. His amber eyes burned as they fixed on Mara's hand still clutching my arm. She dropped me as though burned, stumbling back, her face pale. Roman crossed the room in long strides, his cloak trailing behind him like shadow. He stopped beside me, close enough that his presence pressed against my skin like heat. His gaze swept the room, sharp and cold. Is this how you treat one under my mark? His voice was quiet, but the danger in it was unmistakable. No one spoke. Heads lowered further, spines bent in submission. Roman's attention returned to Mara. If you value your place in this pack, Omega, you will remember your tongue does not decide what is cursed or worthy. I do. Mara trembled, her lips parting, but no words came. She dropped her gaze to the floor. Roman turned back to me then, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he might expose me further, demand answers in front of them all. But instead, he spoke loud enough for every ear to hear. She remains under my watch until the truth is uncovered. None of you will touch her. None of you will question her place here. Do you understand? A chorus of murmured assent filled the hall, though I felt the resentment pulsing beneath it. They obeyed, but obedience was not acceptance. Roman's hand brushed lightly at my back, guiding me forward as though I belonged at his side. The hall parted for us, every servant bowing low, though their whispers still lingered like smoke. I kept my eyes fixed on the ground, but my thoughts churned. His decree had spared me, but it hadn't erased their suspicion. If anything, it had deepened it. As Roman led me out of the kitchens, his voice lowered, meant only for me. You're not safe here without me. Remember that. The words should have comforted me, but instead they felt like chains, because I didn't know if he was my shield or my jailer. That night, the silence was heavy enough to press against my ribs. Roman had kept his word. Guards stood outside my door, their footsteps soft but constant, a reminder that I was never alone and yet always imprisoned. I curled on the narrow bed, clutching my pendant as though its cool silver could keep the mark at bay. The burn at my neck pulsed faintly in the dark, as if alive, as if waiting. Sleep came reluctantly, dragged down by exhaustion, but it was not the dreamless sleep I longed for. Fire. It devoured the night, roaring high into the sky. Flames licked the wooden beams of houses, collapsing roofs into ash. The air stank of smoke and blood, thick enough to choke. Screams echoed, sharp, human, and through the chaos, eyes. Gold. Burning, unrelenting, fixed on me from across the fire. A wolf's gaze, too close, too fierce. It seared into me before the darkness closed in, swallowing everything whole. I woke with a gasp, my sheets damp with sweat, the pendant tangled in my fists. My chest heaved, my throat raw as though I had been screaming. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The fire still burned in my vision, those eyes still glowing behind my lids. The knock at the door made me jolt. It wasn't the guard's clipped rhythm. This one was softer, deliberate. "Enter," I whispered, though my voice trembled. The door opened, and Lydia stepped inside. Roman's advisor. Her dark hair was bound in a severe braid, her robes simple but carrying the quiet authority that made even alphas listen. She moved with the ease of someone who had nothing to prove. "I thought you might not sleep," she said softly, setting down a tray with untouched bread and broth. I was right. I sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around myself. I don't understand what's happening to me." Her gaze lingered on me, kind but sharp, as though she was measuring every word. "You carry a mark, Ara. A mark that belongs only to one man, Court of Tactors." I pressed my fingers to my neck, wincing at the heat that still pulsed there. "I never asked for it." "No one asks," she murmured. "But marks cannot lie." The certainty in her voice made my stomach turn. "Then why doesn't he remember giving it?" For the first time, Lydia's expression shifted. A shadow passed across her eyes, and she lowered herself into the chair near my bed. She folded her hands, her voice dropping even quieter. "Because marks do not always reveal the truth. Sometimes," her gaze sharpened, "they conceal it." Her words unsettled me more than any accusation in the kitchens had. "Conceal?" She nodded slowly. A mark is meant to bind wolf to wolf. It is instinct, blood, spirit. But when something lies between, when fate tangles with secrets, marks can twist. They can appear where they were not freely given. They can bind in ways even the Alpha King does not control. My pulse thundered in my ears. So you think this mark might not be his? Her lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. I think the mark is real, but I think you don't know yourself as well as you believe. The words sliced through me, sharper than any blade. I had told myself I was human, clung to it like armor. But what if I wasn't? What if the fire, the golden eyes, the voice in the dark, all the fragments I shoved aside, were pieces of something I couldn't deny forever? Power cell. What happened to me before I woke here? I asked, my voice thin. Lydia studied me for a long moment before answering. That, child, is the question you must be brave enough to face. Because the wolves will ask it soon enough, and if you do not answer, they will answer for you. The candlelight flickered across her face, casting her in shadow. She rose smoothly, her robes whispering against the floor. I will give you one warning, she said at the door. Whatever truth you think you know, prepare yourself, because the king will not stop pressing until he breaks it from you. Then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. I sank back against the pillow, my body trembling. The mark burned hotter, pulsing in time with my racing heart. My mother's voice echoed faintly in my memory, though it was fractured now, broken by the fire. Run, never tell them what you are. But the whispers in the halls, the suspicion in the council, and now Lydia's cryptic warning all circled the same truth. Something had happened before I opened my eyes, something I couldn't remember or didn't want to. And Roman wasn't going to let me hide from it. The council chamber was colder than the throne room. No torches flickered here, only tall windows, spilling pale morning light across the long table, where the highest wolves of the northern territories gathered. Their presence pressed on me from every side, heavy with power, heavier still with suspicion. I stood at the end of the table, guards at my back, clutching my pendant so tightly the chain cut into my palm. The mark on my neck burned beneath their scrutiny, as though the weight of their eyes alone could brand me deeper. Victor, the scarred wolf, was the first to rise. His voice carried like a growl. Enough of this spectacle. We sit here wasting breath while a human girl bears the Alpha King's mark. There is only one solution: the blood trial. The word sent a ripple through the chamber. Blood trial. I had heard of it whispered in servant halls. A test no one could escape, blood spilled to reveal truth. Wolf, human, hybrid, no secrets hidden, no lies allowed. A shudder ran through me. My mother's warning screamed in my mind. Never tell them what you are. I agree, another wolf barked, slamming his fist against the table. Prove. If she is wolf, let her prove it. If she is human, strip the mark from her. If she is neither. His lip curled. Then she does not belong among us. Murmurs rose, a storm building. The blood trial. Yes, test her. Better to expose the truth than risk the throne. I forced myself to breathe, to stand even as the floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Then Declan, the scholar wolf, pushed his spectacles higher on his nose, his voice cautious. And if we do expose her, what then? A mark is not chosen lightly. If the king's mark binds her, then testing her is not only a risk to her, it is a risk to him. To question her nature is to question his judgment. A tense silence followed. Wolves glanced at Roman, who sat at the head of the table, still as carved stone. His amber eyes gave nothing away. Victor sneered. So we cower because we fear offending our king? The pack's stability comes first. This girl is a danger to us all. The people whisper already. They say she has bewitched him. His eyes flick to me, sharp and condemning. Perhaps they are right. Pirates say. Heat flooded my cheeks. I wanted to shout that I hadn't bewitched anyone, that I barely understood what had been done to me. But my throat locked tight. Any word I spoke would betray me, if not by sound, then by the truth pounding in my blood. Roman's voice cut through the chamber at last, low and commanding. Enough. The murmurs stilled instantly. He rose from his seat, every movement precise, controlled. You speak of stability, Victor. Do you think dragging a girl into the blood trial will stabilize the pack? Or will it fracture us further? His gaze swept the chamber, pinning each counselor in turn. You fear whispers of bewitchment, but it is your own voices that sow doubt. The wolves shifted uneasily. Some lowered their eyes. Others bristled but said nothing. Victor clenched his fists, but even he did not interrupt. Roman stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the floor. The mark is mine. Whether freely given or twisted by fate, it cannot be denied. To demand a blood trial is to question me. His voice sharpened. Do you question your king? The chamber fell utterly silent. No one dared answer. My heart pounded, each word cutting deeper. He was shielding me. Yes, but at what cost? Every wolf here had seen the unease in their king's eyes. If they believed he was compromised, then his strength, the very foundation of the pack, was in danger. Declan cleared his throat carefully. Your Majesty, none here doubt your reign, but you must see the risk. If she remains, questions will grow. If she falls, we may fracture. Either way, the throne wavers. Roman's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. The throne does not waver. He turned then, his eyes locking on me. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that amber gaze, steady and unrelenting. She remains under my watch, he declared, his tone brooking no argument. The council will not touch her. There will be no trial, not while I rule. A chorus of reluctant assent rippled through the chamber, though unease lingered in every face. Victor sat heavily, but his glare burned holes through me. Others whispered behind lowered hands, their doubt thick as smoke. Roman returned to his seat with deliberate calm, but I felt the tension in the air like a storm about to break. The council had been silenced, but not convinced, and as I stood there, clutching my pendant with shaking hands, one truth carved itself deeper into me. The pack wasn't only divided about me, they were divided about him, and if the Alpha King was compromised, then so was I. The council's voices still rang in my ears, long after their chamber doors had closed. Their anger, their suspicion, their demand for the blood trial, it clung to me like smoke. I thought Roman would dismiss me, send me back to the guarded room where silence at least gave me space to breathe. But instead, he led me down another corridor, the guards falling back at a glance. His private study. The door shut behind us with a heavy thud, and suddenly it was just the two of us, the fire casting restless shadows across shelves of books and scrolls. The air smelled faintly of ink and pine, a stark contrast to the council's fury. Roman stood with his back to me at first, shoulders broad, posture rigid. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he did, his voice was low, edged like a blade. The mark is real. I swallowed, clutching my pendant so tightly the leather cord bit into my skin. I never said it wasn't. He turned then, amber eyes locking on me with a weight that made my knees weaken. But you deny it as though denying will make it vanish. It won't. It binds, Ara. It claims. It is dangerous to carry and more dangerous to conceal. The burn at my neck seemed to flare in agreement. I forced my chin higher, though my voice came out thin. I don't know how it got there. I don't even remember. You think I wanted this? His gaze sharpened, as if he were reading every beat of my heart. Want has nothing to do with it. Fate chose, and fate does not waste its power on nothing. Oh. I flinched. The echo of those words dragging Lydia's warning back into my mind. Marks cannot lie, but sometimes they conceal more than they reveal. Roman stepped closer, each stride deliberate, until the firelight brushed the hard lines of his face. Tell me the truth, Ara. Not fragments, not scraps. The truth. The truth. My throat tightened. My mother's warning pulsed in my memory. Never tell them what you are. But his gaze left no room for silence. Wolves could hear lies in the rhythm of the heart, feel it in the pulse of fear. So I gave him what I could, enough to sound real, enough to satisfy. My village was attacked, I whispered, the words dragging like stones. Not by wolves, by vampires. They came in fire and blood. Everything I knew burned. My mother shoved me into a cellar, gave me this pendant, and told me to run. My hand trembled as I touched it. I ran until my feet bled. I crossed the borders. I begged for refuge. That's how I ended up here. Silence stretched between us, heavy as chains. His eyes didn't soften. Fragments, he said finally, his voice rougher now. You give me fragments, Ara, when I ask for truth. The words struck harder than any blow. That is the truth, I protested, my voice cracking. No. He stepped closer still, until I felt the heat of him, the weight of his presence wrapping around me like iron bars. His hand lifted not to touch, but to hover near my throat, just shy of the burning mark. Your heart tells me there is more. You speak what happened, but not what you are. I froze, every instinct screaming to stay silent, to hide, to survive. And his eyes narrowed. Do you think I can't hear it? The stutter of your pulse when you speak half-truths? The fear that flares when you look at me? Not only what you claim. The pendant bit into my palm. Stand, even when you're breaking, my mother had said. But standing against him felt like standing against a storm. Tears burned at the edges of my vision, but I blinked them back. What do you want from me? His voice was quiet but final. I want what fate already took from me, truth. But since you will not give it, I will take something else. He drew back then, straightening the mask of the Alpha King sliding back into place. From this moment on, you remain at my side, bonded or not, willing or not, you are under my protection. My wolves will not touch you, but you will not leave my sight. The words fell like a sentence. Protection, possession, prison. My chest ached, the mark on my neck burning hotter under his decree. I wanted to protest, to scream that I wasn't his, that I didn't belong to fate or to him. But the truth caught in my throat, locked behind fear and blood. Roman's gaze lingered one last moment, unreadable, before he turned away. Better to be chained beside me than torn apart without me. And with that, my world narrowed again, not to freedom, not to survival, but to the gilded cage of the Alpha King. Whispers follow me wherever I go now. They are softer than growls, sharper than blades, winding through corridors like smoke I cannot escape. The kitchens, once my place of invisibility, no longer offered me shelter. I walked in one morning, thinking I could at least find solace in chopping herbs or carrying bread. But the moment my feet crossed the threshold, conversation faltered. Wolves bent over steaming pots, looked up, eyes gleaming with suspicion. The hiss of fire under iron pots felt like the sound of accusations. She carries his mark, one voice whispered behind me. Not earned, not chosen, forced, another muttered. She's cursed, a human playing at wolf. I wanted to shout at them that I hadn't asked for this, that I woke with the same burning scar they all stared at, as confused and terrified as they were. But I held my tongue, pressing my pendant until the edges cut into my palm. Be brave, even when you're terrified. My mother's voice steadied me, but only just. Later, in the servants' hall, I felt it again. Conversations cut short when I entered. Cold glances slid over me, dripping disdain. Two younger wolves, emboldened by numbers, didn't bother with whispers. She bewitched him, one scoffed. That's the only way. No, the other sneered. It's a punishment. The king's fate tangled with prey. Maybe it's a sign he's unfit. The words stung deeper than I wanted to admit. Not because they accused me of magic or deceit, but because of the way they spoke of Roman, as though my very existence undermined him. By nightfall, I had overheard more than rumors. Passing through a dim corridor near the outer halls, I caught the low murmur of wolves speaking in secret. I slowed my steps, the stone wall cold against my back, as their voices drifted through an open archway. The southern delegation will use this against him. He parades her in silks while our enemies circle. Does he think us blind? Presente. He is distracted, weak. An alpha distracted is no alpha at all, Peas. And if the council won't act, others will. My breath caught. I didn't wait to hear more. My footsteps carried me quickly back toward the main hall, the words echoing in my skull. Others will. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was threat. Past. That night, Roman dined with his council, leaving me to the company of silence. I couldn't sit still, couldn't shake the weight of those voices. I ended up wandering to the training yard, where the night air was sharp and the scent of pine cut through my unease. That's where Nathaniel found me. You shouldn't walk alone, he said. His tone was even, but his eyes held something harder warning. Maybe pity. I needed air, I muttered, folding my arms. The walls feel smaller every day. He studied me for a long moment before stepping closer. Do you understand what you are now? I blinked at him, startled. I'm nothing. Just a girl with a mark I never asked for. A bitter smile touched his mouth. No, you're not nothing anymore. You're not invisible. You are the center of every whispered plan, every unspoken doubt. To them, you're not just his weakness. He leaned in, voice lowering until it was almost a growl. You're his battlefield. His words hit like a strike to the chest. I never wanted to be. That doesn't matter. Nathaniel cut me off. The mark made you a piece in a game you don't understand. Wolves loyal to him will defend you because you are his. Wolves loyal to others will target you because you are his. Either way, you are the ground they fight over. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. Then what do? His amber-brown eyes studied me, softer now, but no less fierce. Survive. Stay close to him. Don't let them see fear, because they already smell it on you. And whatever truth you're hiding, his gaze sharpened. As though he could see straight through me. Pray it doesn't destroy him along with you. The weight of his words pressed down until my chest ached. When he finally walked away, the yard fell silent again. But the silence no longer felt like refuge. It felt like the breath before a storm. I pressed my hand against the burning mark at my neck. The whispers, the threats, the fury, they weren't wrong. I was no longer just Ara, the kitchen maid, the invisible shadow in gray. I was something else now, something dangerous, something that made enemies sharpen their blades in darkness. And Nathaniel was right. I wasn't just Roman's weakness. I was the battlefield on which his reign might rise or shatter. I woke to the sound of shouts echoing down the stone corridors, sharp and frantic, cutting through the stillness of the night. My body jolted upright, heart thundering, the mark on my neck burning with a heat that felt like a warning. The door to my chamber burst open, and a guard's voice followed the clang of his armor. "Stay here, the king commands it." He was gone before I could ask what had happened. But I didn't stay. I couldn't. My feet carried me down the hall, drawn by the voices, the scent of smoke and something worse, silver. It clawed at my senses, metallic and acrid, as if the very air had been poisoned. Wolves filled the main corridor, their bodies tense, their growls low and vibrating. I caught fragments as I passed them, Persond, another council member, the vault. Silver relics gone. I rounded the corner, just as Roman strode into view, his presence a storm contained by sheer will. The pack parted for him, but their eyes burned with suspicion. When his gaze found me in the crowd, I saw something flicker in his expression. Relief, anger, fear, all braided together. "Back," he ordered the guards nearest me. They hesitated before obeying. His amber eyes swept over me, sharp and assessing. "Where were you?" "In my chambers." My voice trembled. "What happened?" He didn't answer immediately, only turned and gestured for me to follow. I obeyed, even as the weight of hostile stares pressed against my skin. He led me to the royal vault, the heart of the pack's legacy. The heavy doors hung open, their hinges bent as though something had torn them wide. Inside, chaos reigned, scattered scrolls, overturned chests, ceremonial items strewn across the floor. And blood, a dark smear against the stones, Nathaniel. Crouched near it, his expression grim. He glanced up as we entered, Counselor Merrick, found unconscious just beyond the vault entrance. He lives, but barely. Silver wounds. My stomach twisted. I forced my gaze to the shelves. Spaces gaped where precious objects had once rested. Roman's jaw tightened as his eyes landed on the emptiest alcove. "The coronation relics," he said, voice like stone. Nathaniel nodded. "The silver circlet, the binding chalice, the oath sword, all gone." My hand drifted to my pendant without thinking, seeking its small weight as though it could steady me. Why those? Why not gold or jewels? "Because silver is more than metal to wolves," Roman said quietly. His eyes never left the empty space on the shelf. "It wounds, yes, but it also sanctifies. Our relics are silver because they bind us. Oaths sworn on them cannot be broken." Adio. His voice was a vow in itself, deep and resonant. But before I could draw breath to reply, Nathaniel's tone hardened. "There is something else. Power." He rose, holding a cloth in his hand. The scent near the vault, faint but clear. His eyes cut to me. Human. Hers. Hers. The words struck like fire across dry grass. The room seemed to shrink around me, wolves pressing closer, their growls rising. "No," I said, my voice breaking. "I wasn't here. I swear it." Roman's head snapped toward Nathaniel, his glare sharp as a blade. Scent can be twisted, planted. Nathaniel didn't flinch. "And yet it is here." Whispers surged through the chamber, spreading faster than flame. Wolves stepped back, their stares slicing into me. The human again. The cursed one. The marked one. My throat closed. "Please." I didn't. Roman silenced the crowd with a single, lethal growl. The sound vibrated through the stones themselves. "Enough." His gaze shifted to me, steady, unyielding. "You are under my protection. Any who touch you will answer to me." The wolves stilled, but the air remained thick with fury and doubt. Roman stepped closer, placing himself between me and their wrath, his shoulders squared like a wall. "Go back to your chambers," he told me softly. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Now, I wanted to argue, to insist on staying, but the look in his eyes made me obey. I turned and walked out, each step echoing with the whispers behind me. Back in my room, I sank against the wall, pressing my pendant to my lips. My pulse thundered, my skin clammy. They thought I was guilty. And maybe Roman himself, though he defended me, wasn't certain. Perdas. The mark on my neck burned hotter than ever, as though reminding me of chains I hadn't chosen. Silver relics, blood in the vault, my scent where it shouldn't be. I closed my eyes, my mother's last words ringing in the hollow of my chest. "Never tell them what you are, Paces." But how much longer could I keep the truth buried, when fire and silver seemed determined to drag it into the open? The throne room was not mine, yet every eye followed me as though I were its center. I walked at Roman's side, my steps echoing on polished marble, the mark at my neck burning like a brand no one could miss. His hand rested lightly at the small of my back, a gesture subtle but unmistakable. To the pack, it said possession. To me, it whispered bait. The visiting alphas had already arrived, their wolves lined along the walls in disciplined silence. Southern banners hung opposite our own, the air tense with rivalry disguised as civility. I felt their stares burn against my skin, assessing, calculating. "A human," one of them muttered. Low, but not low enough. Another sniffed the air, his lips curling into something between disdain and unease. "Not just human." The words lodged in my chest. I forced my gaze forward, kept my spine straight. To flinch would be to bleed in waters already thick with predators. Roman said nothing, but I felt the shift in his posture, the contained power, the silent dare in the way he met their eyes. He wanted them to look, to question, to whisper. He was using me openly now, not only as shield, but as challenge. When we reached the dais, Roman gestured for me to take the chair at his right hand. Murmurs rippled through the chamber like a sudden wind. The right hand was not for servants, not for prisoners, not for humans. It was the place of trust, of honor. I sat, though my pulse thundered. Roman lowered himself onto the throne beside me, every movement deliberate, every detail designed to send a message. She is mine. The Southern Alpha, Dominic, broke the silence first. His dark eyes flicked between Roman and me, sharp with amusement that didn't reach his mouth. "You've changed much since last I visited, Roman. A human advisor at your side? Or," his gaze lingered on the mark at my neck, "something more?" The room held its breath. My stomach knotted, but before I could speak, Roman's voice cut through like steel. "She is under my protection. That is all you need to know." Dominic's smile was slow, sly. "Protection comes in many forms. Some say it can make a king blind." Roman leaned forward slightly, his amber gaze locked on Dominic's. "Or sharper. For I see more than you think." The air bristled with unspoken challenge. Wolves shifted uneasily, claws scraping stone. Pendant. My pendant pressed cold against my chest as I clutched it, wishing I could vanish. But vanishing was no longer allowed. When the tension finally broke, it was because Roman willed it. He rose, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. 3 council members dead. 1, attacked, silver relics stolen from the vault, the crown of the queen taken. His words rang heavy with accusation, though no name was spoken. The southern delegation stiffened. Dominic's expression flickered, just briefly, before settling into studied calm. Roman lifted his hand, Servants carried in a new chest, placing it upon a pedestal before the throne. He opened it himself, revealing the ceremonial crown of the Alpha Queen, the one stolen, now recovered. Gasps rippled through the wolves, for all had assumed it lost. Pass. We will use it, Roman declared. Not hidden away, not guarded in shadows. At the full moon gathering, it will rest here, before all eyes. Bait, someone whispered. Roman's mouth curved in something that was not a smile. Exactly. The crown gleamed in the firelight, silver catching and throwing sparks like shards of a storm. The scent of it bit the air, sharp and dangerous. My throat went dry. To flaunt such power so openly was more than provocation, it was a dare. A promise that the killer, whoever they were, would not be allowed to lurk in shadow much longer. But as the crown's reflection caught in my eyes, realization struck with sickening clarity. This wasn't just about silver relics or murdered wolves. It wasn't only about power stolen or power challenged. It was about me. The way Dominic looked at me, the way southern wolves shifted uneasily when they inhaled my scent, it all twisted into understanding. I wasn't just bait for the trap. I was a prize to be claimed, a threat to be silenced, a weapon no one wanted to admit existed. The mark on my neck throbbed in agreement. My mother's voice whispered through memory, "Never tell them what you are." But I could see it in their eyes. They already suspected, some already knew. Roman's hand settled on mine, where it gripped the arm of the chair, firm and steady, a silent command, "Hold." His amber gaze swept the chamber once more, unflinching. "Let them come," he said, his voice a vow that chilled me. "When they reach for the crown, when they reach for her, they will find me waiting. Action and crown, they will find me. They will find me waiting. They will find me waiting." The hall erupted into murmurs, fury, and fear. And I sat frozen at his side, the silver crown blazing before us, my pulse hammering with the knowledge that the storm was not only coming. I was at its center. The study was dim when Roman closed the door behind us, the fire throwing restless shadows across the shelves. He didn't speak at first. He only stood with his back to me, shoulders rigid, as though the weight of the entire pack balanced there. I stayed near the hearth, clutching my pendant so hard the edges cut into my palm. When he turned, his amber eyes were sharper than I'd ever seen, unblinking, relentless. Quote, "You've hidden long enough, Ara. We both know the mark is no accident." Crescio. My stomach twisted. "I told you I don't remember how it got there. I woke with it, the same as you." He took a step closer, slow, deliberate. "You think I don't know my own power? The mark does not lie. It cannot attach itself to prey. It binds only to blood that carries wolf." His words crashed into me like a storm. My breath caught, heat rushing to my face. "That's not true. I'm human. I've always been." "Human?" His voice was low, but it cut deeper than a shout. "Humans age in 3 years. Humans flinch every time they breathe in a den of predators. Humans do not carry a scent muted beyond recognition." His gaze burned into mine. "You are not what you claim." The fire crackled between us, too loud, too bright. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, a drum that betrayed me. He could hear it. He could always hear it. I shook my head, desperate. "You don't understand. You don't know what I understand perfectly." His voice softened, dangerous in its restraint. "Your mother's words echo in you even now. Never tell them what you are." The pendant burned against my skin. His words pierced the veil of memory I had built, tearing it apart. Smoke. Screams. My mother's hand pushing me through the cellar door. the glow of golden eyes framed by fire. Run, Era. Don't look back. The memory left me trembling, my breath shallow. Roman saw it, and something shifted in his expression. Not weakness, not pity, but recognition. She knew, he said. Voice quieter now, edged with something almost reverent. She knew what you carried. She hid you to protect it. Tears stung at the back of my eyes. Stop, I whispered. You don't know her. You don't know me. Roman closed the space between us in 2 strides, his heat pressing against me like the weight of a storm. He didn't touch me, not yet, but his presence surrounded me until it was impossible to breathe. I know this, he said, his voice a vow. You carry wolf blood. Deny it, hide it, bury it, it will not change what you are. The mark would never have chosen otherwise. I turned my face away, shaking, the firelight blurring through unshed tears. If I admit it, everything changes. Wolves will call me abomination. Humans will call me traitor. Vampires will hunt me like game. Do you think I haven't thought of that every day? His hand rose, stopping just short of touching my cheek. And if you keep denying it, you'll wither in shadows, living half a life, waiting for the day the truth tears its way out. Is that what your mother wanted? The question hollowed me. I had no answer. Roman's voice deepened, carrying the weight of command and something else, something more dangerous. Stand with me as you are, or remain a shadow forever. The words sank into me like claws, a demand, a promise, a choice I had run from for years. My body betrayed me. My pulse raced not just with fear but with something hotter, something that drew me toward him even as every instinct screamed to flee. His amber eyes softened, but only slightly, as though he, too, was caught in the snare of something we hadn't named. His hand hovered near my face, a touch withheld, a boundary trembling. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me. For a moment, I thought I might let him. But the silence shattered when a knock struck the door. Nathaniel's voice carried through, grim and sharp. Your Majesty, another attack. Roman froze, the firelight reflecting in his eyes like molten gold. His hand dropped, his face shuddered once more into the mask of Alpha King. He stepped back, and the sudden space between us felt like ice. We're not finished, he said. His tone was not a threat, but a certainty. I clutched my pendant, chest aching, the burn of the mark throbbing with each heartbeat. The truth was no longer just hunting me, it had been named. I wasn't only human. I wasn't only prey. And if I stood at Roman's side, I would never again be invisible, dangerous, desired, marked, but never invisible. The day of the gathering dawned heavy with stormlight. Clouds pressed low over the mountains, and the pack house bristled with energy, wolves rushing in disciplined lines, preparing for the arrival of alphas from across the territories. I stood before the mirror in the chamber Roman had given me, my reflection foreign. Silk instead of gray wool, silver beads glinting in my pale hair, the mark at my neck a flame no cloth could hide. I touched my pendant, whispering to myself, be brave, even when you're terrified. The words rang hollow now. Bravery no longer meant surviving quietly. It meant standing in plain sight, where every eye could judge me. When the trumpet sounded, I followed Roman down the grand staircase. He did not take my arm, but his presence beside me was undeniable, his stride steady, his authority filling every stone of the hall. The wolves who lined the passage bowed low. Their eyes flicked not to him, but to me, wide with outrage, narrowed with suspicion, bright with barely concealed fury. The throne room doors opened, and the world shifted. Delegations entered one by one, wolves draped in furs, jewels, ceremonial armor. Their alphas strode at the front, each exuding a different flavor of power. Cold precision, brute force, cunning wrapped in silk. Roman mounted the dais and lowered himself onto the ancient throne. And I, his shadow, his weakness, his chosen display, took the chair at his right hand. The murmurs were immediate. A human? Marked look at her neck. Impossible. Unless. I sat rigid, hands folded in my lap, as Roman's amber gaze swept the hall. His silence was louder than their outrage, and it bound them until the whispers ebbed into taut stillness. Then came the southern delegation. Dominic. He strode forward with the confidence of a wolf who had ruled for decades. His dark hair streaked with silver, his eyes shrewd and calculating. His warriors followed, like shadows, tension in every step, but when his gaze landed on me, his stride faltered. For the briefest heartbeat, shock flashed across his face before he mastered it. Roman noticed. I felt it in the way his hand pressed against the arm of the throne, a flex of restrained power. Dominic bowed, with measured grace. Alpha King Roman. His voice carried the weight of years and challenge. Then, turning slightly, he let his gaze linger on me again. And this? Unexpected companion. Roman's jaw tightened. She stands at my side under my protection. That is all you need know. But Dominic's eyes told a different story. Recognition flickered there, uneasy, unsettling. He tilted his head, almost as though studying a relic thought long buried. Strange, he murmured. She reminds me of an old bloodline, one I believed extinguished in the Great War. Ice flooded my veins. I fought to keep my expression neutral, but my fingers curled tighter around the pendant at my throat. Never tell them what you are. The council stirred. Wolves exchanging wary glances. Lydia's eyes, calm and sharp, narrowed as though she, too, had caught the weight behind Dominic's words. Roman leaned forward slightly, his voice smooth but edged. Old bloodlines belong to the past. We stand in the present, and in the present, she is under my rule. The tension cracked like lightning. Counselors muttered among themselves, some whispering of danger, others of prophecy. One slammed his fist on the table. This is folly. The king parades a half-breed, and we are expected to kneel? The mark has compromised him. Growls broke out across the chamber, half in defense, half in fury. The air thickened with the threat of claws and teeth. Roman rose slowly, and silence fell, heavy and suffocating. His amber eyes blazed as he looked from wolf to wolf. Compromised? No. Tested. And only those with something to hide call for blood before proof. His voice cut through the hall like a blade. If you think me weakened, step forward. Test my strength. No one moved. The silence held, but I saw the fractures, the way some counselors refused to meet his eyes, the way Dominic's mouth curved in the faintest, most dangerous of smiles. Rebellion had not yet been spoken aloud, but it lived in the room like a pulse beneath the floor. I sat frozen at Roman's side, every nerve alive with dread. Dominic had seen me for what I was, or what I feared I might be. Roman had claimed me before the world, daring anyone to challenge his choice. And the council, once merely uneasy, now trembled on the edge of fracture. The mark at my neck throbbed. A brand, a chain, a crown. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer prey. I was the spark that could ignite a war. And sitting at the Alpha King's right hand, I realized something that stole the air from my lungs. I wasn't just bait. I was the prize. The moon rose slow and merciless above the mountains, silver light spilling across stone like liquid fire. I stood alone in the ceremonial chamber, the crown gleaming on its pedestal, its edges catching the light like sharpened teeth. Behind me, the pack roared in the distance, their bodies breaking, reshaping, becoming wolves. Their cries shook the air, primal and ancient, a chorus of belonging I could never join. The doors shut hours ago, Roman's command echoing in my ears. You'll remain here. The crown is bait, and so are you. I had not argued. What was the point? He was right. I was the lure, the shadow, the mystery no one could name. And if the killer came, it would not be for the crown alone. The silence inside the chamber grew unbearable. Each flicker of torchlight stretched the shadows long and strange across the walls. My mother's pendant rested against my chest, warm as though it remembered the heat of her hand. My mark pulsed at my throat, every throb syncing with the rhythm of the moon outside. Then, the air shifted. The hairs at my neck rose before I heard the sound soft, deliberate footsteps, too measured to be wolf, too heavy to be human. I turned slowly. A figure emerged from the far shadows, tall and lithe, cloaked in black. Their eyes gleamed with a feral light that was not wolf's amber, nor human's brown, but something between unnatural, shifting with each breath. The scent hit me next, sharp and wrong, echoing what Helena had gasped the night she was attacked. Not wolf, not human, something else. You don't belong here, the voice rasped. Neither male nor female, but something caught in between. Neither of us do. Force. Again with Hause. Neither of us do. 2T2. Out of the video. 2TT2. 2 My pulse thundered, but I held my ground, pressing the pendant against my skin. You killed them. The council members. For what? The figure tilted its head, a smile curling thin lips. For truth. For the end of kings who think bloodlines make them gods. Their gaze flicked to the crown. That relic belongs in ashes, as do those who wear it. They stepped closer, and moonlight fell across their face. My breath caught. Scars traced their skin, claw marks that had healed wrong, bone too sharp, eyes too wild, a hybrid like me, but twisted, unrestrained. Why me? My voice trembled despite myself. Because you are proof, they hissed. Proof that blood does not lie. They fear you, even as they deny you, and if you will not burn with me, then you will die with them. The attack came fast, too fast for human reflex, too jagged for wolf precision. I stumbled back as claws flashed, scraping sparks against the pedestal. Crown wobbled, nearly falling, before settling with a ringing chime. I dodged, barely, my lungs seizing with fear. My body screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The chamber was sealed, I was the trap, and the prey. The figure lunged again. An instinct surged inside me, hot and violent. My nails dug into the stone wall, leaving grooves deeper than human fingers should ever make. My heart stuttered, my blood roared. For one wild instant, I felt the wolf beneath my skin clawing upward, demanding release. No. My mother's voice echoed through memory, fierce even through flames. Never tell them what you are. Never let them see. But if I didn't, if I kept denying, kept burying, then this creature would tear me apart before the pack even realized the crown had been stolen again. The mark at my neck seared with unbearable heat, the burn crawling down into my chest, my veins, my very bones. The killer faltered mid-strike, eyes widening. You, they breathed, awe and horror tangled. You're like me. No, I whispered, even as fire raced under my skin. Not like you. The wolf inside me howled, pressing against the walls of my humanity, begging to break free. My hands shook, the edges of my vision shimmering silver. The figure lunged again, and I knew I had no more time. Never tell them what you are. My mother's words cracked through me like glass shattering, but they were no longer warning, they were chains. Chains I could not keep if I wanted to live. My scream tore through the chamber, as claws, not theirs, but mine, flashed in the torchlight. The killer's eyes widened as they met my strike. The sound of silver against stone rang sharp as lightning. The crown toppled from its pedestal, rolling across the floor, gleaming with the light of the full moon. And in that moment, as blood and fire filled the air, I understood the truth I could no longer hide. I was not only human. I was not only prey. I was wolf. The mark on my neck burned with power, undeniable, unyielding. And as my mother's words echoed, "Never tell them what you are," I realized the truth was telling itself.